to a very special episode of Heilman and Haver. We are joined today by our guest, Chris Sullivan. And Chris is on. You're starting already.
I got to start it off already.
Chris has appeared on The Electric Company, The Daily Show, The Real Housewives of New York City, Sports Nation, The Hamilton Mixtape, and various programming for MTV and College Humor. He's trained and performed with the UCB Theater, The Pit, Annoyance Theater, we're going to have to hear about that, and Beatboxer Entertainment, as you might have been able to tell from his intro. And he's also the co-creator of the FLS Academy. That's a mouthful, but not for somebody like Chris.
Hey.
Chris, also known by his stage name Shockwave, which we'll want to know the story behind that as well, can currently be seen at the Seattle Rep as part of the cast or crew Freestyle Love Supreme, running through March 13th. So, Chris, beatboxing. Let's start out with the name Shockwave. Where did that come from?
Yeah, well, beatbox is like vocal percussion, right? So it's and what I'm doing in Freestyle Love Supreme is being the drummer for the show. We'll talk about what the show is a little bit later, but I'm not the only person in the group that is the beatboxer. There's also Kayla Milady. We kind of switch off. Her stage name is Kaiser Rose, and she's fantastic. She's like a double world champion of beatboxing. So I pale in comparison to her skill sets. But it's not a competition because our show is all about keeping the drums going and having the words ride the drums with the keyboards while we make up stories on the spot and are informed by the audience participation. But Shockwave was given to me as a nickname in college, probably 2 decades ago, roughly. And I was named after one of the Decepticons from the Transformers. So it actually was a misname because Soundwave is the Decepticon that actually makes the music. It's that turns into the little tape deck and then goes into the other guy, I forgot his name, who's actually the boombox. So I was in an improv group in college at UMass Amherst, and I was doing some a cappella, and I was experimenting with hip hop, and I had been in bands my whole life, and we can go into that if you want. But I had gotten on the microphone during this improv rehearsal, and somebody gave me that as a nickname. It's like, hey, Shockwave. And it's improv comedy, and it was short form improv comedy. And if anybody knows anything about that, it's a little bit of a, wackiness to it, a little tongue in cheek and a little, Groucho Marx mustache going on. So everybody in our group had nicknames. So the nickname worked for the group, but then it carried on till today, where it's actually my stage name as part of the show.
Well, you have go ahead, Matt.
Oh, no, just say we're big fans of Groucho around here, so you're among good friends.
Excellent.
So looking at your overall bio, so I read that you have a musical background and eventually worked your way into percussion, but then there's that jump from regular percussion to beatboxing, that other form of percussion that you talked about. How did that happen? How did you make that jump? And then kind of the follow-up question to that is, how did you figure out that you were good at it? Because I think we've all kind of tried that. At least I know I have, and I'm horrible at it. Most of us are. But so how did that transition happen, and how did you realize that it was something that you were really good at?
Well, when anybody tries anything for the first time, you're either horrible at it or you're not so horrible at it, right? So
well put.
it takes years and years. We're talking about over 2 decades of practice and stage experience, knowing what I'm good at, utilizing those skills, figuring out what my bag of tricks is and how to use them. And so it's been a lot of practice, I always think about this, and it seems corny, but the Colorado River was what actually made the Grand Canyon become the Grand Canyon. It just ran long enough for decades and millennials for a long time, and it eventually creates the canyon. So you just do anything long enough, you hit your tipping point, you get your 10,000 hours in, and you become really good at it. So I think that it's part of me being good at it through practice. And then there's something about just having percussion in my body, the rhythm in my bones and in my blood, that you have to really embody the rhythm and be a metronome for whoever it is that you're accompanying. And then if you are soloing, you have to have an idea of showmanship and what to do on stage. And what I was doing when I left college with the nickname Shockwave, I came to New York City and I started performing in open mic nights and variety shows. I was really into the improv scene at the Upright Citizens Brigade and the People's Improv Theater. So I would get suggestions from the crowd. I get one word, and then I would improvise a soundscape, sort of using mime and clown, and try to tell a story about what it's like when someone gives me the word snowball, and then you hear. So then I come out of a door and start walking in the snow, which is a different sound than walking on a floor, and all the while also embodying it. So there's a real power to using your body and creating the sounds that your body would be making or that the ambiance would be making. So you're filling in the gap between the magic of theater and what happens inside the imagination of the audience. Because you can you can go to a door and open it and it would be, or it can be, and the second door is a lot bigger. So there's a lot of magic there. Yeah, and older. Yeah. So through doing that and through improvising and beatboxing, that soundscape would eventually turn into like a DJ routine where I would juggle records back and forth. I was doing that, and I heard about the very beginnings of Freestyle Love Supreme, I think after like first or second kind of public workshopping of what they were doing. And I met the guys. I didn't know anybody. I started working with them. And when they were performing, they were using just a CD player. Remember those? Remember CDs? A CD can't really respond in the moment, nor can a CD play a character in the scene. So when I became involved, it sort of kind of changed the DNA of the show and turned it a little bit more into, all happening in the spot and being able to slow down or stop on a dime. And then from there, I just rolled with Freestyle Love Supreme as kind of my main conduit to continue my my practice of improvisational comedy and vocal percussion and beatboxing.
Well, as someone who has done a little bit of work with their voice, I grew up hearing, you don't have to make all the sounds to go along with everything. Did you hear that as a kid too? And what was the first sound effect you attempted? And probably the one your parents got the most tired of hearing because you were obviously perfecting it. Started those 10,000 hours young. Were you one of those kids?
It's funny. People will be like, oh, you're a beatboxer. Like, do something, as if you have a string on your back that you can just pull it and do it. And I'm also consciously aware of not being annoying in public. So I'm not the type of person to be doing this all the time. That's not to say that it's good or bad. That's just sort of where and who I am. So my parents were never like, stop making noise, because I didn't do it then. I wasn't really beatboxing until after I left the house. So yeah. But the first sound effect that I really kind of made outside of the most important ones, which is the bass and the snare going, and then you add the hi-hat. But sound effect is what you said. So
well, that qualifies.
Okay, then I answered your question.
Really. Yeah. It is a sound effect.
Well, you had during the show and when you start, the show started out and you were doing the beatboxing, but then you started to do a lot of the sound effects, and it just kind of made me think of Michael Winslow from Police Academy, who could pretty much make any sound. I mean, that's my first experience with someone who could do that kind of thing. So I guess along the lines of Matt's question, what's your favorite sound effect to do, and maybe the one that's been the most difficult to try to master?
Good question. Yes, Michael Winslow, fantastic, fantastic artist, phenomenal comedian. I think one of the most versatile sounds, and everything kind of starts from what most people can make. So there's like, and I already did it already earlier on when I did the door opening. It's that inhale from the very back of your throat. Because you can go, and it's the same thing, but if you move it back a little bit, it's. So when opening a door, it's just from the side of the tongue, and then. So you mimic the sound of it going that way. With that sound, you can also make a baby cry, which is just some of that inhaling and then a little bit of an exhaling. You can also make a crazy background to a beatbox where it's like. So yeah, that's a part of the body that I'm still trying to master myself, but it comes in handy because it's sort of otherworldly. But like I said, everybody has access to it. Just takes practice.
Well, it's a lot. It reminds me what you're describing as taking something and recreating it. It's like a painter, right? You know, you see something or you imagine something and you interpret that through your hand and the brush. You're interpreting that through your mouth and your throat and your lungs. And so it seems like it's a lot of the same principle. I mean, it's art, obviously. So.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Before The Electric Company is a show for kids. It's still on the air on HBO Family, but it's when you graduated from Sesame Street.
Mm-hmm. I remember next? The original Electric Company.
Yep. Uh-huh. Yeah, so I think in 2019 is when they brought back The Electric Company. And Freestyle Love Supreme was actually part of every step of the way. So we were there with the executive producer of Sesame Street, who was charged on bringing back The Electric Company. She saw our show and said, these guys really got something, let's bring them in. So we did a proof of concept with them. A year later, we did a pilot. A year later, we did the first episode of the show, and it ran for 2 or 3 seasons, I think, with a lot of success. But when I was getting involved and we were developing it, I thought, how wonderful would it be to be on a green screen and to be creating a reality as a character with movement, and then to have an artist, a digital animator, fill in the cracks after it was created. And that's exactly what happened. We recorded 40 to 50 little mini episodes, like little mini clips, like 3 minutes long. That's like me playing a butcher where I'm chopping words, a secret agent where I'm like zipping down a zip line and using my watch to pull out letters and spell words. And it was really, really fun, but it's definitely theater. It's definitely theater when you think about the stage as a blank slate. Our show doesn't have props other than the stools and the costumes and clothes that we wear. So we oftentimes will turn a hat into something else where there was no hat. And you know, the background of our stage is a blank slate. So a lot of what I do in the show and a lot of what we do in the show is create stories out of nothing with the audience itself. Actually, not out of nothing, like from the audience, from their suggestions, and then create them on this blank slate, which is basically a green screen.
Now, when you do the show, there's a basic framework to it, right? You have certain, I don't want to call them, I'm trying to remember what the term was, games, I guess, freestyle games.
We alternate between saying games and songs, but yeah.
But then because it's a framework, so it's a specific, I guess, game. But then you take input from the audience, or we had the opportunity before the show to submit a word, and becomes almost like in the Whose Line Is It Anyway scenes from a hat thing when you're pulling out the word out of a hat. And doing an improv there. So it's a bunch of different things, and you switch those up every night. You have a pool of so many of these kind of games or songs that you do, and you just decide each night which ones you're gonna do.
Yes and no. The show has an architecture to it. it allows for anybody who comes to see the show, if you don't want to participate, you don't have to participate. This is not a show where we go out into the audience and force you to do something, or like that is my worst effing nightmare. To go, to like, I just want
Put
to
on the spot.
yeah, I don't have to clap if I don't want to. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm not gonna get called out, I mean, if you get up to go to the bathroom while the host is speaking, you might get called out just as a joke. Like, what did we do wrong? But the show has an
offbeat. No clapping offbeat.
Yeah, no ones and threes here. The show has an architecture where, like you said, when you come to the show, you're putting words in a bucket. That's a very passive way to be involved. What's a word? Any word. You write it down on a piece of paper. Well, back before the pandemic times, you would literally write on a piece of paper and put it yourself into a bucket. Here, you use a QR code and then use your phone, and then it goes up into the cloud, and then it goes backstage, and then our props person writes it down on a piece of paper, and then it goes in the bucket. So we've all learned all the proper workarounds, and then it moves slowly into when the show starts and we're on stage, it's give us a verb, an action word. And then people start to raise their hand, or popcorn style, send it out to us. And then we start to slowly get a little bit more involved. What's something that you've done in your life that you wish you could take back? Okay, now we're asking a little bit more of the audience, and we're getting more meat to work with if we were building a sandwich. And then we get, what's a word that you can't live without? And then we really tap into it. And that's a part of the show where the performers actually turn and give back to the audience about true stories from their own life. And it gets real vulnerable, like tears and laughter like comes out of unexpected places, till the very end of the show, where an audience member will volunteer and actually come up to the front of the stage and share their entire day. And then we do a hip hop version of their day and then replay it all. And then it comes back to the audience. So as you can see, from what it is that we're asking from the audience, it requires just a little bit at a time, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more, So if we started the show by saying, "Hey, welcome to the show. Can we get someone to come up on stage and share their day with us?" It wouldn't work that way. So yes, there's a structure to it, but also there are some games that we can kind of swap in and swap out. We also take in guests. We have a special guest coming up in like 2 or 3 days from now, but I don't know when this is airing, so I won't even say. But we have special guests, so we have ways that we can kind of alter what we think of the show to accommodate the special talents of that guest.
How has the reception been in Seattle? This is the second show since the Seattle Rep has reopened post-COVID with their brand new remodel. It's a lovely, they've done a lovely job. How's Seattle made you feel welcome? I hope they have.
Oh, the theater is beautiful. The staff is wonderful. And, this is our second city on the tour. So the main thing that we're really focusing on as a company is that we are guests in any city that we're visiting. It's different when we're in New York, and it's only slightly different, but we know New York. We know unique New York. so we have the sort of the ability to take the piss out of certain things, to make fun of our own city. But if you do it in a city where you're a guest, that doesn't fly, So there's a certain obligation to pay honor and pay homage to certain landmarks, like the Needle is outside my window right now, or different people or different styles of music. So we'll do grunge stuff and talk about, Kurt Cobain in certain ways, or we'll, different people. The mayor came to our show. It's, so we're like, how much do we get embedded in the culture and the geography of the town itself? And it's been, I'll tell you what, in Seattle, it's been super easy, and people have been so willing and open. And I'll tell you, the audience is so giving. It's just there's so much laughter. The theater itself, the actual theater lends itself to people just feeling close. It's a beautiful space. Like you said, it's just remodeled, but they all feel so close, even though they are, in the house. So it's just really warm, and it's really enjoyable. And we leave the stage every time being like, that was awesome, because we can really feel the feedback and the laughter and the love that comes to us.
Well, I imagine that as you go from city to city, some of the input from the audience is kind of local, right? Because I think in the show, somebody called out, something you can't live without. Somebody called out coffee, and Anthony just yelled out, "Hey, Seattle!" Typical Seattle, right? But I have to imagine that it kind of gives a uniqueness to it when you get submissions from the audience like that.
Yeah, we got to read the newspapers. We got to find out what the local culture is and the slang words and things like that. This is all, we're only in America, so it's not going to get that far off, but also it might, because it is America.
That's true.
the polarizations that's happening right now in government and just people and all of that. But yeah, somebody said, I don't even know if this is a Seattle thing, but this is an example of like when a word gets thrown at you and you don't know, is this just this person's thing, or is this like something from a TV show that I have never seen, or is it a local Seattle thing? But maybe you two can clear this up. Left lane campers.
Oh,
left. You know what that means? Left lane campers.
So people who are driving under the speed limit in the passing lane.
Okay,
yeah, Seattle's known for horrendous traffic, second only to, well, maybe Portland now, our sister to the south, but LA.
We're going to Portland too, so that's useful information.
Well, there you go. Good luck down there.
Okay.
Well, I liked what your promo video said, that you're going to hear something that's never been heard before and is never going to be heard again. So that really speaks to the uniqueness, not only of your guys' creativity as musicians and actors and improv artists, but also each individual audience, each individual city. So I mean, a brand new, fresh show every time. You can go Friday, Saturday, Sunday night and not see the same show twice.
Mm-hmm. And we have fans who are sort of traveling, not with us, but they're coming to every stop along the way. And some of these people have seen 60, 70 shows. It's kind of has sort of that like cult following amongst certain folks. And I think that's precisely why it's never the same show. So they keep coming back and it's always different. And even internally, if you were to see 10 of our shows, you start to feel like you can see the formula. And there is a formula, like I said, like letting the audience in slowly. But there's also like little intricacies where in typical long form improv, where the whole piece is based off of one word, a lot of improv schools will say, "Can we get a suggestion?" And then they take the very first thing that they hear, and then they thank them, and then they go with it. We take a bunch of words before every piece, because not only will we use them in callbacks, and it gives us more material to use during said song or through the entire show. We might call back to a suggestion we hear in the very beginning that we never took for that first song, but we'll end up using it at the end. But it's also like the commitment to a sense of authenticity, of not taking the same word twice. So in the beginning, like, let's get an action word, like run, skip, jump. Like those 3 words are ones that we got to burn through, because those are ones that will come first, and then we'll get defenestrate, like the ones people who are trying to trick us, so like we've heard the same word many, many, many times. And then it's about farming it to try to find that one unique thing that we can spin that we haven't used before.
One thing I put when I wrote my review of the shows, I called it being in the audience is like being part of an improvisational Mad Lib in a way. And one question I have is kind of around the interaction with between the group members, because you're providing that backbeat for the group, and they're doing, they're making up stories and doing all that. How much do each of you feed off of each other, even from the the folks telling the stories to the keyboardists or yourself as kind of that backbeat?
It's a great question. So just like the way that you said, or that you asked, if we rotate in new games or new songs, our cast in a typical theater show, there are the leads, right? And then there's the understudies or the swings that will kind of go in when the other person wants a day off, or they're sick, or something. Our show has that in the traditional sense, because it fits into the contracts that happen when you have to commit to a tour. But there's individual cases along the way. So for instance, myself, I've been in the group for 18, 19 years. And my personal take is that we want this show to grow and to have sit downs in multiple cities at the same time. So it's in my and in the group's best interest to kind of bring in more people, like bring in more beatboxers. So for 2 decades, I've been the only beatboxer. So Kayla is incredible. It's about getting her reps on the stage to be able to let this show now really become hers. So our schedule for any given week is that I do 4 and she does 4, and then we alternate. And then I'm watching and she's watching. So it's a little bit more of an integration rather than like I'm the star. And then when I don't do it, then she has to work really hard to become the star, you know? So there's various situations like that within our cast so that any schedule is different than the day before. So we might have a different game or two, and we might also have a different lineup of different people who are on the stage. And that has to do with scheduling and all the boring production stuff, but it also has to do with just like keeping it sort of flowing just enough that it's always different, but we also still know what to expect.
And you said you guys are heading to Portland next, is that right?
We're going to Boston next.
Oh, Boston next, okay.
And then Portland, yep.
They're flying you back across the country.
And that's a home game for you. Okay. You grew up in Foxborough, right?
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
How long is the tour?
It's until, I think, August? Yeah, there's a bunch of month sit downs, and then there's these weeks in the middle where we hit, not in this order, but Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Detroit, and San Antonio. I think those are the weeks. And then we go to San Diego and then Los Angeles.
Fun cities, plenty of improv material.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of variety. And you guys will be in Seattle through March 13th. So a couple more weekends for folks to see you guys. If they don't get the chance, check out when they'll be in Portland. It's just well, okay, we just made fun of the traffic. Not that bad of a drive south. worth seeing these guys.
You did it so we didn't have to.
That's right. So another question, how do people keep up with what you're up to professionally, on the tour, et cetera? Social media, what's the best way for people to keep up with everything Shockwave?
Yeah, like to me, like all of us who are of a certain age, social media is a little bit weird for me. So I'm not out there like promoting myself, or I'm not even like retweeting every Freestyle Love Supreme thing, but Instagram is great, and I am Sharkwave on that because Shockwave was taken because it's owned by Viacom. But yeah, check me out on Instagram, Sharkwave. I like to retweet jokes and send. I don't make a lot of postings, but my stories are bangers. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, and just and follow Freestyle Love Supreme and the Freestyle Love Supreme Academy. And the Freestyle Love Supreme Academy has recently partnered with, or merged with a company called Speechless based in San Diego and Wayne Brady to create FLS Plus. So we're in the very beginning stages, but if you want to hear more and be a part of that journey, go to flsplus.com and you can get on the mailing list there and kind of see what we're up to. But the goal that we're really aiming for is to take improvisation and the tools of improvisation and put it into the hands of many people as we can all over the world, to create environments for equitable play, to be able to learn more about yourself and to find happiness and enthusiasm in investing in your own true story and making your own life up on the spot.
Wow,
really
fantastic.
excited about that.
We'll get that linked in our show notes as well.
Definitely. Well, one thing before we let you go, I wanted to ask you a quick question of something that I thought about as I was watching the show. Is it almost seems like a chess game in that you have to think a few steps ahead, because I can't imagine that your mind or the mind of anybody on the cast it's got to be thinking of something beyond what's coming out of your mouth at that current time. So is that something that, I mean, I guess that's something that gets developed over time as well, being able to do that piece.
100%. I look at it, chess game is an excellent metaphor. I also look at surfing. So I surf or bike riding, when you're a bike ride or a scooter, and there's so many, we ride scooters every single day. It's I know that it must be such a love-hate relationship with the scooters here in Seattle. Just like, don't ride on the sidewalk. Just don't ride on the sidewalk. Like, ride on the sidewalk. And if you're on one, wear a helmet and look down, because those potholes will literally kill you.
Yes. But
speaking of potholes, when you're riding on something, and you hit a pothole, like that's a mistake that happens, but you got to keep your head up and keep going forward. So, or else you're going to fall. If you keep thinking about that one pothole that you hit, you're going to end up missing the turn and get hit by a car or something like that. Or if you're surfing, you're on the wave and you've got to keep your head up, because if you look down, that's how you fall. So a lot of what I think of when I'm doing the show as the beatboxer, as the drummer, and as the accompanist is I'm doing the thing here. While I'm doing that, there's words that are happening at the same time, and I'm locking into whoever's rapping, and I'm usually literally watching the lips, or if it's a keyboard player, I'm watching the keys to make sure that we're as locked in as possible. And for the lyricist, that if I hear something that I can contribute to, whether it is making a sound that if they're talking about opening a door, I'm going to probably open a door or make a like knocking on the door, whatever, if I hear something, or if they shift in their narrative and they say like, but wait, I'm going to suddenly kind of like change the beat so that it gets highlighted in a way. I can also contribute by not making any noise. So if I feel like that MC is setting up a really great rhyme and they're really going to hit it, then I'm going to do a dropout. And so let that kind of be in the clear, that will get a bigger laugh. So it's a chess game, but it's like playing chess while you are riding a surfboard.
That's a great metaphor. We're stealing that one.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Chris, appreciate the time. You have a show tonight?
Yeah, we do. 8 shows a week. Monday's our day off, so.
Okay, well, Chris Sullivan, aka Shockwave, we appreciate the time. We're going to try to get back to see the show either while it's still in Seattle, or maybe we'll take a road trip down to Portland, grab some Voodoo Donuts, and then head over.
That'd be awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. This is great.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks. Cool.
Right on.
All right, that's how you do it.
That was great, man. Thank you so much.
That's great. You guys are you're part of a network with your pod, or is it independent, or what?
We are independent.
Awesome.
Yep. But you can find us on all major podcast platforms. So, and this will go out on our YouTube channel and on our social media. We're a couple old guys, but we try to stay hip to all that Instagram jazz too. So
yeah, it's not easy.
Nah.
No, I did a podcast called Shock and Awesome for a while, like a year and a half, and it's not easy. It's not easy to do it without support. I couldn't do it anymore because I was booking the guests, interviewing them, editing it, putting it all together, and trying to make it like I had a kick on trying to be like all Radiolab for a while, where there would be like something else going on in the background, and I get like all of my feels, and I would create a new song, a new intro song, and cover one of the songs of the guests. The guests were always musicians. And so I would be doing all this. Too much. It's too much to do. And I had no team. And I was like, I am burned out. So it wasn't even making any money.
Question. One of our past guests, Rob Paulson, decades long voice actor, Yakko from Pinky and the Brain, million credits. Have you done any of that type of work? You
voiceover stuff?
Yeah, voiceover stuff, animation, anything. You had to have been asked. I can't imagine you haven't been approached for it.
I've kind of tried to, and I have done like a few minor things, but nothing that's like creditable.
A few friends answering machines, that type of thing.
Sort of. Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of music stuff.
Sure, yeah.
But because of voice, it's tricky because to get into that world, voiceover world is really hard to get into, where it's such a small pool to pull from. Mm-hmm. So I'd go out for voiceover auditions, and then like my manager would be like, just do beatboxing stuff. But it was like, it does nothing to do with beatboxing. It's like, so it was hard. I never really kind of landed that, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
Because it's lucrative too.
Yeah, easy. For sure. And you would think that, I mean, like we've talked to Foley artists in the past, and they've talked about how, studios are trying to build digital libraries of these sounds, and you can't replicate someone's footsteps, that type of thing. So somebody who could do those types of sound effects verbally rather than boop, play raindrops, kind of a thing, seems like it would really add a better element to an animation. But maybe. Well, hey, we again, we appreciate your time. You got a show tonight, so again, break a leg. Thanks again for your time.
Thanks a lot, guys. Good luck. I can't wait to hear it and see and check out the rest of your stuff too.